by now, I'm sure you already know the name of the talk or the podcast. But it's, if you don't know, for those that are new here, it's Structured Street Smart. And today I just want to, talk to parents and guardians and those that have got kids that they want to assist in their careers. Or maybe I want to talk to you, or you are really looking at which is the right career. Now, this is always a funny question. When I was at university, we used to argue about which engineering, from the engineering faculty, obviously, we used to argue and say, which degree program is the best? Which one is going to make someone make a lot of money? And, we used to spend hours and hours arguing. And obviously now, as you know what they always say, hindsight is always the best. Because now when I look at things, I'm like, yeah, well, I chose the best. But to be honest, I'm almost feeling like this is generic information that I'm going to give. But nevertheless, I want to give this information because I think it's important. First of all, the degree program or the course that someone does has absolutely no bearing on whether they're going to be successful in life or not, right? And I know it sounds very easy to say, but in my experience, that's what I've seen. What do I mean by that? For the past 10 years or so, I've been in the mining industry, and I've seen that you can have a degree in medicine and work in the mining industry and make a living. You can have a degree in HR and be in the mining industry and make a living. I have seen engineers that report to HR personnel, and I've seen HR personnel that report to engineers. I've seen doctors that report to HR personnel and vice versa. And I've seen accountants that report to HR personnel and accountants that report to engineers or doctors in the mining industry. What it just means is it's not really about a degree, but it's about how one positions themselves. In mining industry, for example, there's large marketing department. Someone will say, no, but don't do marketing and all of that stuff. But there's marketing department, and I in one of the companies that I worked for, mining companies, the bonus in marketing was always the best bonuses there. Well, it just shows you to say it's not really about the course that one is going to choose, but it's about what do you do then with, the course that you choose, or the program of study that you choose. So in advising people over and above really researching on which is the most marketable course out there, because I also think that's important, and I think that's where people always ask the question. I think the question is more less about which one is the most paying and more about which one is the easiest to get a job after you graduate. I think that's where the question is. And the simple answer to that is that always changes, right? And it also depends on which country that you're in. If you are in a country like Switzerland, for example, where its economy is based more on the financial services industry, I don't think you'll benefit much by really pushing to be an engineer in those circles, But if you are in China, I think, and in Japan and in Africa, you'll probably benefit much by becoming an engineer, because obviously, there's places where minerals are important. So you need people that are going to mine and all of that stuff. And in China, you need, further processing and all of that stuff. So the degree program that you're going to choose, it really depends on your geographical location and where you want to be after the degree program or the course or the diploma or whatever it is. In terms of money, which is where the biggest question is, anything that you can do in life can give you lots of money. It just depends on how you position it and how you view it. Now, the final thing that I want to say on this topic is, for those that then, end up going to tertiary, The objective of tertiary is not for you to get all the big book prizes, right? It's important, it's but it's not really the main objective. The main objective is to prepare you to be a significant individual in society, an individual who can go out there and identify opportunities and take advantage of opportunities, whether it's opportunities to change the society, opportunities to change the community, opportunities to change your own life. And in that also is the ability to integrate with other individuals. And that's what you're supposed to be learning when you're in tertiary education, whether it's a university or college or whatever it is. You have to learn how to integrate with others, how to mingle with others in society. That for me is the biggest trick to success. And a lot of people do not get that. Asante sana.
One of the kings in Troy said to Achilles, who arguably is one of my favorite characters of all time, but he says to Achilles, he had gone to bid with Achilles, and this guy was very good with words. And Achilles said to him, "Why are you always the one that comes on behalf of other people to bid?" And then this guy said to Achilles, "You know, Achilles, you are a very good fighter. I'm a good speaker. And we play with the toys that the gods have given us." And I thought that was a powerful statement. What it just meant was, we're not all gifted the same. We have got, different giftings. One can sing, one can dance, certainly not me. One can speak, one is an engineer, one is a doctor, whatever it is that you can do. One is a musician and a lawyer, one is a farmer, but the whole idea is we have to play with the toys that God has given us, whatever talent and gift God has given you. That is very, very important in career choices. A lot of parents and a lot of guardians, when they want to assist their kids to select the right career, they always pick at one particular one and say, you must be that. But we are not all gifted the same. We all don't have the same toys. We have been given different toys. What's important is for one to identify that toy that they've been given and develop a passion out of it, right? Importantly also is sometimes the toy that you have been given, you have not discovered well. So you need to think about, what do I do until I get to discover the toy that I've been given? In other words, yes, I want to become a doctor or an engineer, but before I become a doctor and engineer, what else can I do to sustain myself? Because it's not just about following your dreams and your passion, but like they always say, you have to do what you have to do so that at some point you do what you want to do. So how does one do that? One of prominent pastors in Zimbabwe, Bonnie Tishau, at one point says, involvement is the key to your calling. In other words, you have to do much and get involved in many things, and in you getting involved in so many things, that's how you bump into what your passion and what you're good at is. I, for one, for example, I thought at some point I was going to become a doctor, and at some point I thought I was going to become an electrical engineer, mechanical engineer, and I went and I started engineering. But it's only later on that I discovered that I was not really an engineer to the core, but within engineering there are pieces that I like. So for example, there's maths in engineering, there's strategy in engineering, there's planning in engineering, and those are the things that I really liked. And I then honed on my skills onto those kind of things, and I discovered that actually those were actually the toys that have been bestowed. So one needs to discover what toys they've been been given.
We have been inclined to choosing the traditional kind of career. So I'm talking about accountancy, being a lawyer, being an engineer, being a doctor. All those things are traditional. But in my time, after I finished high school, there is something that I learned that was critical. So my friends and I, who I was studying with in A level, we actually thought that we were either going to become an engineer or a doctor, right? And a lot of us obviously applied for either being a doctor or an engineer. But there's one thing that's interesting that happened to guys that went to study in the US. a lot of them actually that had qualification, that had qualified to be accepted, to study medicine or to become doctors. As soon as they got there, they actually realized that they didn't want to be doctors. Then they, selected different kind of things. Some of them became programmers. Some of them became, space engineers, and all of those things. Some of them actuarial scientists and stuff. And one thing that I learned was, because of our exposures here in Africa, which it's not that much as compared to the rest of the world, we as parents and people who guide people in terms of their careers are inclined to pushing and driving them towards the traditional kind of careers, like I've mentioned. But I think one thing that is important, especially if you're going to be considering working outside of Africa, then you need to realize that it's not just about becoming a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. The world out there has a lot of things that you don't know, and you really can make it out there with the non-sort of traditional kind of career.
So the question is the same, really. How does one balance their passion and livelihood? And that question is always very difficult to answer for young students, older people. We all have our passions, but in as much as we have our passions and the things that we really love to do, we also have bills to pay. And I dare say that in my view, the way the world was created, we were created in such a way that we were supposed to enjoy life, pursuing our passions. But a lot of things happened, and I don't want to go into a religious debate. But what I want to say then is, there is always that thing that how do we then balance what you really like doing and making money? Back in the day, I know, especially in African context, if you said you want to play sports for a living, you want to play football to be specific, or you want to be a musician, then parents would lose their mind. But obviously that is changing a bit. But I think for me, the issue really is to look at the different contexts and settings. So if you look at an African setup in most African countries, I dare say, we have most of our populations being on the first level of hierarchy. Maslow hierarchy of needs. In other words, we are not even talking about self-actualization and self-esteem up there. All we want is food to eat. We are still at the first level, bare minimum. We just want food to eat, right? And in that case, then, it then is a question of you eating, having a meal on your table, and you doing what you love. And that's always going to be a challenge for everybody. And I would say one then has to really balance that. You can't go purely, this is my passion, because you're going to die of hunger. But also you can't go purely because I'm really looking for money, I'm willing to do anything, even things that I hate, that my core hates. So one has to literally, try and balance those things. In a first world setting, if there's anything called first world, and I don't know why other places are called first world, but for the context, we'll just say first world as we know it. Then I imagine there's room for one to follow their passions, because their systems, they allow for that. So for example, if you want to be a musician, you really can make it out there being a musician. If you want to be a soccer player or rugby player, you really can earn a living. So their systems don't just drive us towards a particular narrative and a particular career and a particular job. Their systems are driven by, if you put your effort into a particular thing, and you can really make it. So I think in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is, we have to, first of all, realize where you are. Context is always key. If you're in an African setup, if you're in a country like Zimbabwe, for example, or Mozambique or Zambia, just following your passion purely because of passion, then you've got challenges. You have to then balance and understand that you can follow your passion and be hungry. But if you're in a country, let's say like South Africa, if you're in a country like the UK or in the Americas or so, then yes, you can decide, I'm going to follow my passion, and you really can make a living. I think in all of this, I'm saying it's not an easy choice, it's not an easy decision. Hence, we need more mentors out there to help those that are going into different places so that they make the right decisions and the right choices.